Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching in the world. My name is Sean Driver. This is the Red Horde, continuing the series, the Who Are You series. In this one, well, we know who you are, Notts County. We've had our run-ins before. We'll continue to have them for at least a couple more this year, and we'll see what ends up happening. But the question will be, who are ya? Who are ya? Who are ya? Let's get into it. This one is a consequence of the history that Notts County and Wrexham have had. They've been interconnected through, the documentary, the push through the National League, the record-setting pace that both teams had last year. A lot of the history is known, so the intention on this one, let's get to the analytics, because there's a lot there. Contrasting styles, a very different approach to the game, and it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see who's able to sort of assert their will come Saturday. So let's jump right into it. And if you like this content, as always, hit that subscribe button. But without wasting any time, Notts County FC, the Magpies, obviously. Location, Nottingham, England. Population, 323,632. And the games, as we are aware, Meadow Lane. Opened in 1910, capacity 19,841. And this year, 11,678 people average attendance for Notts County. That's second in League Two behind Bradford and just ahead of Wrexham. They're filling out just about half of the stadium, 58.9%, but as word on the street is there's only, as of Thursday evening, about 100 tickets left, and then it'll be a complete sellout at Meadow Lane. Distance away from the racecourse, 93 miles, 150 kilometers, or 2 hours and 20 minutes for those of you who are making the trek from Wrexham for the madness. Let's talk turnover, and you look at Company House for the records of Notts County, and they were last posted December 2022 for the year end June 2022, so we're a year and a half behind. For that season ending in 2022, assumed to have been £6.5 million on the turnover side of things. They do have a higher than desirable creditor bill. That's always a concern, but they have owners that are willing to foot it. So not driving their turnover and their wage rate by necessarily pushing and finding revenue streams, but instead just simply turning to the owners, which is a long-term risk, but as long as you have owners willing to pay, everything seems to be okay. So I'll leave that for Notts and their own fans to assess whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Rest of the first half schedule, it's interesting. You look at them, I'll bring up both of them here. Notts County ends up having a lot of games still to play with some of the top teams. Obviously, Wrexham sitting in third, Stockport County sitting at first, Crewe sitting in fifth, and then the rest of them sort of mid-table teams. The lowest they go is Harrogate Town at 17th. For Wrexham, we've played a lot of the top teams already. I'm going to knock Notts County off the list, and once we do, we've got some lower top third teams, Accrington, Stanley, Morecambe, Harrogate. But then after that, to finish everything off, we've got teams that are lower in the league, and one would hope that ease of schedule means that points could be driven home. So this could be the jumping off point for something great for Wrexham, and conversely, it could be the jumping off point for something harmful for Notts County. Notts County, founded November 28, 1862. That makes it the oldest professional association football club in the world. And for trivia purposes, the reason why I air quoted is they had to add the word professional to stave off claims from Crystal Palace for being the oldest, because Crystal Palace formed as an amateur club in 1861. And also they have to use the word association to stave off the claims of Sheffield FC. And I don't mean Sheffield Wednesday. I don't mean Sheffield United. I'm talking about the 8th tier team, Sheffield FC, who played under the Sheffield rules until eventually changing to the association rules in 1878. But they've been around for a long time and obviously a founding member of the EFL. So they've got that history doing that in 1888, where they finished 11th, but they were re-elected to remain in the EFL. And then in 1892-93, they were relegated for 3 seasons before being brought back into the fold in 1896-97, where they stayed until 1912-1913, and then they sort of went back and forth between the top 2 tiers up until 1929-1930. They were then relegated, and then they went between the second and the third tiers up until 1957-1960, and then 3 seasons, really painful, went from second tier to fourth tier. Bounced around between the second and the fourth tier, then up until 2014-2015 when they had that relegation into League Two. They stayed there and then had a subsequent relegation 2018-2019, and we know how long they were in the league, because the National League, because they ended up joining with Wrexham last year, obviously. So best season ever for them, third in the top tier, 1,900 to 1,901, just behind Liverpool and Sunderland, for record's sake. Honours, they've been second division champs 3 times, most recently 1922-23, third division champs 2 times, most recently 1949-1950, and they've been fourth division champs 3 times, most recently 2009-2010. FA Cup winners way back in 1893-94. Let's talk about the kit, and I want to understand this. They have these long-standing, gorgeous black and white stripes, and as much as I'm not a Notts County fan, I do like the history of sticking to those black and white stripes. They're well-renowned, and so all the credit to them. But then they have these away and third jerseys that are just sort of a cornucopia of colors with no rhyme and no reason. Why? They've had red, they've had orange, yellow, two-tone blue, mauve, purple. The badge is gold with black and white, and I'm sure that you can come up with away jerseys and third jerseys that build on that theme. It is what it is. They decided not to stay with the brand, and they continue to do so, and oh well, what do I care? This year, it's blue with white trim. So boring, I can't even get my words out. Bookie odds had them third, so expected to be in the running, and they're damn close to being in third place. Their performance, 9 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses, 30 points, and that makes them 3 points higher on the table than Wrexham. They were trounced from the EFL Cup in the first round with a loss to Lincoln City at home, that being a League One team currently sitting 9th in the table. Out of the EFL trophy as well after losses to the Wolves B team and the Derby County. So unless they can defeat their EFL Cup nemesis, Lincoln City, by at least 2 goals, and get a Wolves B squad loss, they'll be out of the EFL trophy. I'm sure they're not going to be heartbroken from that. Follow along on Twitter, and they're definitely on for the ban of the trophy with the B team edition. Record in the last 5, 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. So looking at their last 5 games, they had a 3-0 home win against Notts County just most recently, dominated in all stats, 67% possession, some 18 shots, 495 passes. It was clearly a dominating win. The stats recognize it should have been a dominating win on all hands, so they've earned that one. 2 games ago, 2-1 road victory against Gillingham. Again, they dominated possession. They had 583 passes, but they were behind in big chances, and actually the expected goals per game, at least on FotMob, says that game should have ended in a draw. So maybe fortunate to get away there, but you see that theme of huge possession, huge volume passing. Then we've got the 4-1 education by Mansfield over Notts County that happened 3 games ago for them, where Notts was absolutely crushed in that game. Their back line pillaged and just Swiss cheese, and Mansfield carved them up. I was able to watch that game because it started before the Wrexham game. I will say this, I hate the iFollow rules because you've got to end up paying to watch that game, and then you've got to choose who do you want to give your £8 to, because 80% of the iFollow goes to Notts County or Mansfield. I'm not going to say what I ended up deciding to do, but I just wish there was a way that you could give the club to the team that you support and just watch the other games around the league. That's a different subject and for a different day. 4 games ago, a 1-1 draw against Barrow, 67% possession again, 581 passes, but they were behind in big chances and in shots and in expected goals. And actually, even though it was a 1-1 draw, the FotMob stats says Barrow should have probably taken away 3 points on that one. Then 5 games ago, 3-1 win at home to Swindon Town, and that one was fascinating because that's the only game of the 5 where they were actually behind in possession. They did have more big chances, but they only 388 passes, so I don't know what happened with the style and whether that was Swindon's style asserting itself and winning out, but they ended up with more big chances, and the win was earned. So that's the 5-game history look. What's fascinating about this is the contrasting styles. And so as we go through these and we bring up the different team stats, the different player stats, I want to sort of identify the identities of Notts County and Wrexham and just follow the stats and find out, does that fit for what you're seeing as well? So what do we got? I'm going to put up these statistics here to compare the team statistics between both teams to try and demonstrate their difference in styles, and keep the conversation in mind as we go through the individual statistics, because they are as divergent as you can get between 2 clubs. So when you look at Notts County, they are patient, but they're also very clinical when they're in attack. They have the second highest goals per shots on target in the league. So some 50 passes before taking a shot, but once they go and they're on target, it tends to find the back of the net at a higher rate than anybody else. Wrexham were more direct. We are at about 20-25 passes until we get a shot, but we are a high volume shooting team, so different contrasting styles there. Notts County defensively, absolutely atrocious in the air. Worst team in the league, and you look at the individual stats as they pop up, and you're going to see some air duel one statistics that are shockingly bad for defenders. The good side for Wrexham, well, strongest team in the air in all of League Two, most accurate crosses in the league, and that's part of what our mode to success is going to be. Notts County, well, they're in attack, they're on the ground. And what's the bad news for Wrexham is that's how you rip open our back line, is not through the air. It's through that interplay in the box and finding a pathway through. What is also concerning for the game coming up is that Jody Jones down their left side, so our right side, is absolutely tearing it up. And if there is one person who can end up not only serving up some crosses, but also attacking directly, it is Mr. Jones. And who are we going to have down the right side? Is it going to be Hayden, Tunnicliffe? Is it going to be Ford? Is he back from injuries? Or Mendy? Whoever that is has to be an answer because they're going to be challenged, and that's going to be a major component to the game. Finally, the last difference would be the positional play of the teams and where they end up gaining possession. Notts County does have a high line, and they gain a lot of possession on the opposition's midfield. And that's because they move their defensive line forward. They put pressure on the entire team, that's their entire opposition, to try and eke those turnovers, maintain possession, and come back the other way. The way to attack that is a counterattack. And in April, when the teams last met, that was what Wrexham was able to do, is get that counterattack flowing. For Wrexham, they're going to have to be happy giving up some possession, I suspect, and they're going to have to be willing and capable at the counterattack. And what I'd like to see is a little bit of an improvement on those goals per shots on target, because the opportunities are going to be far thinner. As far as keys to success, for Wrexham, this isn't changing style. It's not being something that you're not, but we cannot give away possession. And that's absolutely crucial. And finally, we just have to be able to seize those opportunities, and somebody please hopefully step up defensively on that anticipated ground attack. Last match with Wrexham, well, how can we forget? April 10, 2023, that 3-2 win where Fozzie, busted out the save going to the right, and everyone, well, at least in the racecourse, was blissfully happy going home after that one. Connections to Wrexham, none on our side, but Connell Rawlinson, he's a 32-year-old defender for Notts County. He was born in Wrexham and started his football career in that team up north that starts with a C. Last season's performance, we know it well. Second most points in the National League all time, and also that was good for second place last year. 32 wins, 11 draws, 3 losses, which put them 4 points back from Wrexham at the end of things. Luke Williams, the gaffer for Notts County, did have a conversation about the upcoming game with Wrexham, and he described that entire season last year as just relentless because every draw felt like a loss. Here, Luke Williams, we just talked about him. Short career in non-league football before he turned to coaching. He moved through grassroots and became a development coach, joined Brighton and Hove Albion, managed their B squad, their under-21 team. Then in 2013, he joined Swindon Town as an assistant for the manager, became a replacement manager, then a caretaker manager, and then in 2016, he became the permanent manager for Swindon Town. In the 2017 offseason, he ended up moving to Bristol City, head coach in the championship, and then 2019, he became an assistant at Milton Keynes before finally leaving in 2022, and in that offseason, joined Notts County. His record for Notts County, 43 wins, 16 draws, and only 10 losses for Notts. Lots of additions for Notts County since we saw them last. 5 different players coming in. Aidan Stone, goalkeeper, a free transfer from Port Vale. Daniel Crowley, 26, a free transfer from Morecambe. Jody Jones, who we just talked about, doing exceptionally well down that left side and being a handful, was a free transfer from Oxford United. Will Randall, 26, a free transfer from United. And then you've got David McGoldrick, who's adding some offensive flair, who's a free transfer from Derby County. He's had a history with Notts County, wanted to come back and sort of wrap up his year being 35 years of age. They've also got 2 relatively new loan additions. Lewis Macari, 21, who's a loan from Stoke City. He's only played 165 minutes, but looking at the Twitter accounts, or X accounts, rave reviews for last week's performance. So we'll see if he ends up getting a run again here. And then you've also got a center back, Ollie Tipton, 20, loan from Wolverhampton. And I'll tell you, looking at the stats, somebody might want to look at giving him a shot because what they've got isn't doing it for them, despite what Mr. Langstaff said about the last game with Newport. The big name out for them was Ruben Rodriguez. He was the one who scored in the 109th minute in Wembley to get Notts County through to penalties, which they ultimately won. I've talked about WT analysis, WT_analysis, and their work. There's another one, B. Griffiths, who does some work as well, and a lot to do with Notts and with Wrexham and League Two. They've done this one most recently with the League Two shots per 100 passes. And again, you just have a look at it and where Notts is all by themselves on the left-hand side of that chart. That speaks to their composed offensive approach, their patient approach. But because they're higher up on that chart, it also talks about their leaky defense. As to Wrexham, over further on the right, that demonstrates more direct, a little bit more controlled defensively than Notts County is. Turning to the next chart, and this is from B. Griffiths, at B. Griffiths on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. And he demonstrates that Wrexham sitting there at 11%. What that percentage stands for is the open play passes that end up in the box of the team that's listed. So for us, that's 11%. That means we're doing better than anybody else in the league at refusing passes to come into the box. Our shape is good when we're back there. We're good in the air. We're good with passes going through the box. It's just getting beat by people who come forward and make those plays one-on-one and direct. Notts County, interestingly enough, when it comes to their back line, well, they're the weakest team in the air, but they're also the weakest team at allowing passes inside their own box. So seizing the opportunity becomes much more important. Taking a look at the forwards then for Notts County, and a familiar name there, Macaulay Lagstaff, and we know the battles that he had with Mullen last season. He's had 1,288 minutes. He's been healthy throughout, 11 goals, and you take a look at their per 90 stats, he's leading the charge, 98th percentile on shots taken, so up near the top. Even better, shots on target, 99th percentile, shot conversion rate at 90th percentile, so he's converting at a rate that you would expect, and he's taking high volumes. So Lagstaff doing his thing. McGoldrick, 1,070 minutes. He's got 6 goals, so a nice little addition coming in, 35 years of age and adding his experience. And he's adding 2.6 shots. So they're getting their offense from really the true front line. It's a little bit more diverse and spread out with Wrexham, where you definitely have, with Notts County, their strikers lead their charge, full stop. Shot conversion rate, not quite as impressive in the 84th percentile, and a shot accuracy even lower at 67%. His numbers actually somewhat more similar to Paul Mullen, McGoldrick having a very solid season. Daniel Crawley, who's listed as a forward midfielder, and it's a little bit, he's moved up and back as things go forward. Interesting with him is the massive increase he's had in his goals per 90. Last year, 0.07 goals per 90, his best year ever coming back in 2016. This year, he's up to 0.57 goals per 90. That's a massive jump. And I look at the shots on target. He's got 6 shots on target and 7 goals. So I don't know exactly how those goals are coming into play, but he's largely there for his passing and his setup. I anticipate, given that he's had 470 passes and 418 of them successful. He's got a high pass completion rate, and I suspect he's there for part of that carving up and interplay that happens in the box that Notts prefers to do, and that Wrexham's actually good at defending. So will it be interesting to see if Crawley's able to work his magic. You've also got Aaron Namane, and his statistics, his passing stats, just not there as much. 334 passes, 36 passes per 90 minutes. That's only in the 54th percentile. Key passes, only 1.19 per 90. That's 73rd percentile. And then those successful crosses, he's at the 82nd percentile. So not expected to be as much of a threat as the other names, but he's not falling off the map as far as skill set is concerned. I'll bring up the Mullen numbers just as a comparison, and you can see a little bit below where Lagstaff and McGoldrick are. We obviously know the reason why. I think they're equal in quality now that Mullen's been going, and so we should see those numbers even out for Mullen going forward. Midfielders, and here you've clearly got one guy leading the way with respect to passes, and another guy who's leading the way with respect to key passes and crosses. And so just to lead, Matt Palmer, 28 years of age, 1,262 minutes. That's a ton of time logged for Mr. Palmer, and he's 99th percentile in number of passes, in successful passes, and in pass completion. So he's there, but not the person who's responsible for a lot of the service. Crosses only 1 per game into the 56th percentile. So expect him to be in that midfield helping out in the back and some of those secure passing where they're looking for possession before he decides to probably turn and go, I suspect is his role. Jody Jones, we talked about him, 26 years of age, 1,017 minutes, and then have a look at the number of his crosses. 6 crosses. He's clearly leading the team in that regard, 95th percentile in the league, and that's sort of his role coming down their left side, our right, is to gain possession and either look for those key passes in, which the highlights have shown me that he's good at, or serve up those crosses, which let's hope he opts for the crosses, because at least we have a defense for that, rather than seeing Jody Jones decide to run at people. Other anticipated players to play for Notts County in the midfield could be John Bostock, 31, 901 minutes. Again, he's a boss when it comes to passes and successful passes and pass completion rate. That's because of the style that they play, the ticky-tack in the back, just going to be safe and wait for an opportunity and a letdown before trying to move forward. Not a threat with his crosses, not a threat with key passes, but somebody who's able to establish things in the midfield, and somebody that hopefully we can nick the ball from a couple of times. Other players that we can look at, Sam Austin, 26, he's got 645 minutes. Look at his numbers, not really that impressive considering what Notts County has done historically with respect to their passing. But there is another player who intrigues me, and that's Toby Adebayo Rowling. He's 26 and he's only had 410 minutes, but you look at his key passes and his crosses. This is somebody who doesn't have the volume of everybody else per 90, but as far as the under threat and putting pressure on an opposing team, he seems to be somebody who can add that skill set. And so interested to see if he gets his shot. Then we've got another chart from WT_analysis, and this one, the percentage of aerials won in both boxes, and you can see Notts County in that bottom left of that chart. And what does that mean? Well, take a look at the y-axis, the one that's going up and down, and that's got the percentage of aerials won in the opponent's box. Not something that Notts County does. Them and Morecambe lowest in the league in winning aerials. That's not the style that they play. They're coming on the ground. Aerials won in their own box, again, one of the worst in the league, 4th worst, as a matter of fact, sitting at 40% of aerials won in their own box. So what do I say when you're Wrexham is feel free to have a run directly, because you can, but that aerial attack is going to be there for you, and that means Tozer, I think you have to give him a run so that he can get those throws in. George Evans, if Tozer's not, to be able to fill that in, and Mr. McLean will be looking at you down the left side to be serving up a lot of deliciousness, placing it on some heads so that it's there for us. Looking at the defenders then, and reminder, we've talked about how poor they are with their stats. You've seen the statistics before. The center backs end up having aerial duels won statistics in the 97th to 99th percentile in the league. And just have a look at this. Kyle Cameron, 26, 1,170 minutes, 65th percentile with aerial duels won, and his ground duels, 51st percentile. Run at him, go through the air. Richard Brindley, 30, 1,095 minutes. Aerial duels won, 47th percentile. Ground duels won, 15th percentile. Through the air, run at him, have a kick. Aidan Baldwin, doing a little bit better than the others. Aerial duels won, 73%. His ground duels, 24th percentile. We're just serving up the same thing here. Hit the repeat button. It's pretty clear what to do. Connell Rawlinson, aerials duels won, 51st percentile, 9th percentile on ground duels won. It is an atrocious back line, and so what do? Well, you do what Notts County does, is they insulate them, they inoculate against the back line by dominating possession and moving the high line up. And so we've got to steal some possession. We've got to be smart when we have the ball and not give it away. As for the goaltenders, an interesting development as far as the goalkeepers go. They brought in Stone, 24-year-old. He's played 1,004 minutes. They let Slocum go from last year. He played in the first game and then got pulled, allowing 4 out of the 5 goals got past him. Stone then came in and took over from weeks 2 to 12. Not exactly sure what happened and why he got pulled out, whether he got a bit of a knock, but there was a 4-5 loss to Colchester. There was a 1-1 draw to Barrow, where the only goal that went in was a penalty kick. 66% save percentage. He's been doing all right, not exceptional, but all right. But they went back to Old Faithful, Slocum. He's played in the last 3 games, which included the Mansfield drubbing, and he's only got a 59.3% save percentage. He is coming off his first clean sheet of the season, but doesn't seem to have the quality that Stone has. Just as a comparison, you've got Stone at 66%, Slocum at 59.3%. Where do we sit? Arthur Ogonkwo sitting at 76.9%, so we do have an advantage in net. Look, we're doing the same thing that we do each time we do these videos as we look at foods to compare the team to, as well as a team in the North American professional ranks. And so let's compare the team. You've got a highly offensive team with absolutely atrocious defense. Well, this is the easiest one to look at in hockey. That is the Edmonton Oilers. Great players up front, solid as all hell, brutal in the back line, and not really the best in goal. As to the NFL, maybe this year the Miami Dolphins, they're putting up a lot of points. They're also allowing a lot of points. And so that's where the professional sports analogies go. As to a food, let's go with quinoa. A vegetarian dish that takes an exceptionally long time to cook. What is it, 22 minutes, 25 minutes to get quinoa going properly? And yeah, it serves up what you need, but there's nothing really fancy about it, and that's Notts County style. Is they're not going to wow you with their play. It takes a long time to get going, but can't say they're bad. And that's true. Notts County is a capable team. Look, this is going to be a fascinating one to watch, not only because of the history, not only because of how the teams came through last year, and how they're started this year, neck and neck racing to try and get into those and hold those automatic promotion spots, but also the stylistic play. Twitter's a buzz about this one, so it should be a good one. The watch party. I expect this one to be a cracker. We're continuing to grow and build up, and things are getting good. We're pushing higher numbers each time. The last record we broke in the last one was the most consecutive chat messages that were sent. So we've got an active crew, the old guard that's sitting there, people like Brendan and Jed and Andrew and John and so many original people. W&G is sitting there helping out. Come and join the mob. We have a good time doing it, and it's exciting to sit and watch. You'll see this one before the game on Saturday. I'll be running it from the desktop, planning to do the women's game as well, and potentially working with Welsh Beast on something interesting that we're going to try and pull off, and we'll have a chit chat about that one as well. If you like this one, hit the subscribe button. Lots of information. I know I packed this one with research because, well, we know who Notts County is. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you Saturday for the watch party, right? This has been the Red Horde.